I'm Chelsea. A few weeks ago, my father, who had been battling an illness, passed away. I wish I could have shown him his grandchildren, such words escaped my lips along with a sigh. I got married when I was 25, exactly 5 years ago. At my wedding, my father and I made a promise, I'd let him know first when I got pregnant. But that promise remained unfulfilled. That's my only regret about my father. Since his illness was discovered a year ago, I've done everything I could for him. I regularly returned to my parents' home and visited the hospital with my mother. I increased the frequency of phone calls and video chats. I did everything I could think of. Still, I can't help but wonder, could I have done more? I muttered. My mother, sitting next to me, reassured me, "You did well, Chelsea." "Really?" I asked. "Yes, your father would be satisfied," she said. Just then, my sister Portia returned, bringing the lawyer with her. "The lawyer's here," my sister announced as she entered the living room. Behind her was a man in his mid-40s. I assumed he was the lawyer, and he handed me his business card. "I'm Samuel, the attorney," he introduced himself. "Thank you for coming." "Please, have a seat," I said. "Excuse me," he replied, and my mother guided him to his seat. As soon as he sat down, my sister blurted out, "I heard from the lawyer that Dad left quite an inheritance." "It's not all for you, Portia," I reminded her. "I know that," she snapped, glaring at me. I glared back. "My sister and I don't get along. We used to be okay, but things turned sour when we found out about Dad's illness." One reason was my sister's arrogant attitude. No matter how many times I reached out, she never visited our father. Of course, I may have said it wrong. I might have been a bit harsh because I was worried about him. But her reaction was also a problem. "You're not a child, you don't have to be so stubborn," I told her. "I'm not being stubborn. I live in the city, it's not easy to come to the countryside," she retorted. "But you can get here in 2 hours by car," I countered. "Those 2 hours are tough." "It costs money," she argued. "Is money that important to you?" I asked. "Of course it is. I'm busy, so stop contacting me," she snapped, and with that, she finally stopped talking. Even if she lives far away, she could visit once in a while. I always thought so. That's why our relationship deteriorated so quickly. In the end, my sister never visited our father, so our relationship remained strained. Sensing the tension, the lawyer intervened. "Let's calm down, please," he said. "Okay, I'm sorry," I apologized, and the lawyer nodded before continuing. "As I mentioned on the phone, I have your father's will." "When did this happen?" my mother murmured. "A few weeks before he passed away. He contacted me," the lawyer explained. "So you went to the hospital?" she asked. "Yes, I had him write the will in front of me with his primary physician present," he said. It turns out they had arranged for the primary physician to contact the lawyer when my father passed away. So, after my father passed away, he contacted the lawyer, who then reached out to us. "That's how it happened, and why I'm contacting you now," the lawyer said, pulling out a white envelope and placing it in front of us. "This is the will." "That's definitely Dad's handwriting," I muttered, verifying the characters on the envelope. My sister, Portia, seemed a bit annoyed. "Never mind, just tell us what's in it." "I'm busy, you know," she said impatiently. "Very well," the lawyer said with a wry smile, opening the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper. This is what was written there. It stated that besides the house and land, my father's inheritance included some savings and a storage shed. We knew about the house and land, but what's this about a storage shed? As I was pondering this, my sister angrily said to the lawyer, "Wait a minute, you didn't mention the farm." "Farm?" "Yes, the farm Dad used to work on as a hobby. My father used to run a company in the next town, but after turning 50, he began to feel his age. I'm thinking of closing the company. I want to take it easy. Is that okay?" I heard this when I was in high school. My sister, who was in college at the time, opposed it, but my mother and I, concerned about my father's health, agreed. Don't worry about the money, Portia. We have enough savings, my father reassured her. Reluctantly, she agreed. After that, my father really did close his company and started farming near our home. It feels good to move my body while farming, he said, looking happy. Seeing him like that, I felt glad I had agreed, but my sister didn't seem to feel the same. She had said she would return home after graduating from college, but instead, she got a job near her university. Eventually, she married the CEO of an IT company she met through work. Anyway, that's why father was farming until he got sick. My sister insisted that the farm should also be part of the inheritance. The lawyer reviewed the documents after hearing this from my sister. He quickly found a note and said, "The farm is rented land." Rented? I thought we owned a large piece of land, my sister said, disappointed. Indeed, the farm where my father grew vegetables was spacious, but it might be too much for us, who know nothing about farming. Maybe it's good that it's rented. That's what I thought. The conversation then shifted to dividing the inheritance. As for the division of the inheritance, the house and land go to the wife, the lawyer said. My sister grinned. So we can divide the rest however we want? Please divide the savings and storage shed equally between you two. Savings means cash, right? I'll take the cash. How much is it? The savings amount to about $100,000. There's no need to pay inheritance tax for this amount. Then I'll take the $100,000 in cash, my sister declared triumphantly. But I couldn't agree with such a selfish arrangement. I strongly protested against my sister. Wait a minute, I object. Why? I'm the oldest daughter. That's irrelevant. You can have the storage shed. What? Even that, what even is that, anyway? My sister turned back to the lawyer, flipping through the documents. The lawyer answered. It's the storage shed next to the farm. You'll inherit the building, the land, and its contents. With land. My sister's eyes lit up. Even though she's married to the CEO of an IT company, does she still want more money? As I was wondering this, the lawyer told my sister the following. The land comes with it, but it's about 65 square feet, roughly the size of a small bedroom. A small bedroom? Yes. Here are the photos. The lawyer placed photos of the shed on the table. Pictures of both the interior and exterior were displayed. The exterior clearly looked like a rundown shack. The inside contained only basic tools like hoses, scissors, and shovels, nothing that seemed valuable. I don't want it, my sister grimaced, pushing the photos away. The images were very ordinary, the items were sentimental but held no monetary value. As I was thinking this, my sister spoke up. Fine, I'll take the cash. You can have that dirty shed. Hold on, that's not fair. You agreed to the vegetable farming. What are you complaining about now? It was hard to argue when she put it that way, but if I didn't speak up, she'd take all of Dad's inheritance. So we're good then, my sister pressed. As I struggled to answer, my mother chimed in. As long as Portia won't complain later, I have no objections. There's no way I would, my sister declared. Then Portia gets the cash, and Chelsea gets the shed. Okay, it's settled then, the lawyer said. My sister grinned. Feeling uneasy, I immediately objected. Well, I'm not satisfied. Oh, give it up. You're so greedy, aren't you? That's not it. You're such a hassle. You care more about Dad than money, right? My sister's words left me speechless. Of course, family is more important than money. Money is important, but it's not something to compare with family. While I was thinking this, my sister quickly ended the conversation. In the end, my mother got the house and land, my sister got Dad's savings, and all that was left for me was the dirty shed. After that, my sister signed a document promising not to complain about the inheritance division. She laughed loudly, and I was full of complaints. I couldn't help but vent to my mother. Mom, why didn't you help me? I did help you. How? You sided with Portia. That's not true. I made sure you got the shed. Huh? I'm not happy about getting that shed. You might find something surprisingly good if you look closely, my mother said with a smile. I could only puff out my cheeks in response. The next day, I took the key from the lawyer and headed to the shed near the field. It was a 10-minute walk from home on a rural road where no one else passed by. I finally reached the field my father had rented. For the past year, he had been hospitalized, so the field was empty. I opened the shed with the key. Wow, it's dusty, I muttered. The shed was quite dusty, probably because no one had cleaned it. Still, there might be something sentimental from Dad. Thinking this, I looked around the shed. Nothing special here. It was just a dirty shed after all. All I found were tools used for farming. They could be considered sentimental, but they weren't anything special. Maybe I should just take what's inside for now, I thought. That's when I noticed something. Huh. It looks smaller than from the outside. Maybe it was the dim light, but the inside of the shed felt a bit cramped. Is it just my imagination? Thinking this, I stepped outside the shed, but something still felt off. After pondering for a bit, I decided to walk around to the back of the shed. The backside was adjacent to a thicket of various trees. To my surprise, there was another door there. Wait, another entrance at the back? I gasped. When I looked from inside the shed, there was only a wall, meaning the only entrance was the door I had used. Yet from the back, there was a door. What's going on? I thought. A door on the back should be visible from inside too, but it wasn't. That meant there had to be a wall in between. In other words, there was a space accessible only from the back. The moment I realized this, I got excited. This must be Dad's surprise, I thought. Dad always loved surprises. He even surprised me on my birthdays. Memories flooded back, and I found myself tearing up. I quickly returned inside the shed and began searching for the back door key. If it was Dad, he would have hidden it somewhere in the shed. With that gut feeling, I rummaged through the shed. After a while, I found 2 keys hidden in the handle of a shovel. I went around to the back and tried one of the keys in the door. With a click, the door opened. What could be in here? The space inside was indeed cramped, only about 3 feet wide. A large safe stood alone in the space. Is this from Dad's company? I recognized the safe. It was the same one I saw in the corner of his office when I was a child. Nostalgic, I hugged the safe. This was a true memory of my father. I felt fulfilled. This alone made the inheritance worthwhile. But knowing Dad, this couldn't be the end. There's got to be more surprises, I muttered and inserted the second key into the safe. With a slightly rusty sound, the safe opened. What? No way. The moment I saw the contents, I was stunned. Inside was an unexpected inheritance. What should I do? Oh, I have to tell Mom. I locked the safe and rushed to my mother. After explaining the situation to her, I called my husband. With his help, we moved the safe to my parents' house. Then it hit me. The contents of the safe were undoubtedly Dad's. However, if it's part of my inheritance, including the shed, I might have to pay inheritance tax. Better get this checked out thoroughly. The contents of the safe were clearly valuable. I decided to consult the lawyer. Inheritance tax for that? You should consult a certified public accountant, the lawyer advised. So, I got a referral to an accountant from a friend. I left all the complicated matters to the accountant. Half a year passed this way. Just when I thought things had finally settled down, my sister showed up near my home. What brings you here all of a sudden? I asked. Well, I had some business at our parents' house, she said. So you stopped by?
Yeah.
Something like that. My sister's behavior was strange. Even if my home is close to our parents, it is still a 20-minute drive. We're not the kind of sisters who would casually visit, especially after the tension over Dad's inheritance. It's not a relationship that comes into play carelessly. I couldn't shake off my suspicion as I looked at her. Meanwhile, my sister, acting a bit nervous, asked, "Can I come in?" "Sure, but what's the matter?" "I have something to talk about," my sister said, forcing a smile. Reluctantly, I let my sister into the house. After I served some coffee, she started to fidget and then began to speak. "So, did you win the lottery or something?" "What?" "No, I didn't." "Then did your husband get a bonus?" I tilted my head, puzzled. "I never buy lottery tickets because I'm not interested. My husband, who's a salaried worker, does get a holiday bonus, but it's not that time of year." "What on earth are you talking about?" I asked her directly. "Hey, what are you talking about?" Suddenly, my sister got angry. "What are you making fun of me?" "No, what are you talking about?" "Money." "Money, you have it, don't you?" "Money?" "Yes, I heard about it," my sister began to speak excitedly. It was a story from a few days ago. Living in the city, my sister had run into our aunt by chance. The woman started the conversation like this. She heard a loud noise coming from the backyard. Startled, she went to check it out and found the back door wide open. The shed door was also ajar, and the safe was missing. "Did someone break in?" I asked, shocked. "Yes," my mother replied, her voice trembling. "I called the police right away." My heart sank. The safe, with the remaining valuable watches, was gone. Who could have done this? I wondered aloud. Just then, a police officer approached us. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions." I nodded, still in a daze. The officer led me to the side, away from the crowd, and started asking about the safe and its contents. I explained everything, from the inheritance to the watches and the recent encounter with my sister. "Do you have any suspects?" the officer asked. I hesitated, then mentioned my sister's strange behavior earlier that day. She seemed very interested in the safe. "But I can't imagine her doing something like this," I added quickly. The officer took notes and assured me they would investigate all possible leads. After they finished questioning me, I joined my husband and mother, who were talking to another officer. "We'll do everything we can to find the safe and the person responsible," the officer said before leaving. As the police wrapped up their investigation, my mother looked at me, worried. "What are we going to do now, Chelsea?" "We'll figure it out, Mom," I said, trying to sound confident despite the turmoil inside me. The next day, I received a call from the lawyer. I explained what had happened, and he advised me to get a proper inventory of what was in the safe and document everything for the police and insurance purposes. He also suggested that we might need to consider the possibility of legal action if my sister was involved. Feeling overwhelmed, I called the certified public accountant who had helped with the inheritance taxes. She guided me on how to estimate the value of the stolen watches and what documents I would need for the insurance claim. Days turned into weeks with no news from the police. My sister hadn't contacted us since the day she visited, and the tension in our family grew. I was torn between anger and disbelief at the possibility of her involvement. One evening, as I was going through some old family photos, I came across a picture of my father smiling with the pocket watch I had kept. It reminded me of his love for surprises and the joy he found in simple things. Determined to honor his memory, I decided to focus on what mattered most, our family. I reached out to my sister, hoping to clear the air and find out the truth. After several attempts, she finally agreed to meet. We sat down in a quiet cafe, the tension palpable. "Portia, I just want to understand what happened. Did you have anything to do with the break-in?" I asked, my voice steady but soft. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and defiance. "I didn't break in, Chelsea. But I did tell someone about the watches." "Who did you tell?" I pressed, trying to keep my emotions in check. A friend, she admitted. I was just venting about how unfair everything seemed. I never thought they would actually steal the safe. I took a deep breath, trying to process her words. Do you realize what this has done to our family? She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of the situation settling between us. Finally, I spoke. We need to go to the police. You have to tell them everything you know. Portia agreed, and together we went to the police station. She gave them the name of her friend and all the details she knew. The police took her statement and assured us they would follow up on the new lead. As we left the station, I felt a sense of relief. The path to resolving this mess was still long, but at least we were moving forward. Back at my mother's house, we sat together, talking and trying to mend the rift between us. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew my father would want us to stick together and support each other. In the following weeks, the police found the friend Portia had mentioned and recovered some of the stolen watches. The safe was damaged beyond repair, but the most valuable items were intact. We filed the insurance claim and used part of the money to improve security around the house and shed. Through it all, I learned the importance of family, trust, and forgiveness. My father's legacy wasn't just in the material things he left behind, but in the lessons he taught us and the love he showed us. And that was the most valuable inheritance of all. My sister's actions had caused quite a stir, and the aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions and decisions. It was hard to reconcile the image of the sister I grew up with and the person who had made such reckless choices. The hospital stay gave her a lot of time to reflect, and I hoped she would find a way to turn her life around. Living back at my parents' home brought a mix of nostalgia and new beginnings. My mother, despite everything, was thrilled about the baby. She threw herself into helping us prepare, her excitement palpable as we set up the nursery and planned for the future. The months flew by, and my mother was a great support, her wisdom and experience invaluable. The dynamic between us had shifted, and we grew closer as we navigated this new chapter together. Even though my father wasn't there, his presence was felt in the love and memories that filled the house. As my due date approached, my sister's situation remained precarious. She had started working part-time, and while our relationship was strained, I made an effort to visit her in the hospital. Despite everything, she was still family. During one of my visits, she looked up at me with a mix of regret and hope. I'm sorry, Chelsea, she said softly, tears in her eyes. I made a mess of things. I know, Portia, I replied, squeezing her hand. But it's never too late to make things right. We just have to move forward. With time, my sister's leg healed, and she began to piece her life back together. It wasn't easy, but she found strength in the support of our family and the determination to rebuild. Finally, the day came when I went into labor. It was a long and challenging experience, but the moment I held my baby in my arms, all the pain and hardship melted away. My husband and I were overjoyed, and my mother was beside herself with happiness. We named our baby in honor of my father, a tribute to the man who had taught us so much about love and resilience. As I looked into my child's eyes, I felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. Life had thrown us many curveballs, but we had weathered them together. Our family, though imperfect, was bound by a deep love that could withstand any storm. And in that moment, surrounded by the people I loved, I knew we would be okay. The lessons my father had imparted lived on through us, guiding us as we navigated the complexities of life. And as we embraced the future, we did so with the knowledge that we could face anything as long as we had each other.